Welcome crew, guys, gals, ghouls, friends, fiends, foes, whoever may be listening beyond the Omniverse tonight. Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a Rocky Mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is August, Sunday the 13th, Monday, August the 14th, for those of you across the pond and beyond. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mile High Clubhouse tonight. I'm so glad you guys could join us on this wonderfully hot and humid weekend. It has rained, so yes, it is humid. It is so hot and stimy in this office. If you see me wiping my sweat, it's because it is super hot. Don't mind my luggage. I'm just getting over some overnight security all week long. It has been a long week, but it's been a fun week. Last night was particularly fun. I finally got my camera fixed. I got my new lens. I did have a lens. Then I finally found my camera, put it all together. Come to find out, the lens was actually for a film camera instead of an SLS camera. So it wasn't digital. It wouldn't work. But yeah, I took some pretty cool pictures of the crew last night. It was pretty funny. We had Wayland and Dylan and Nova, and we can't wait to share those with you. It's going to be pretty funny, pretty epic. But if you're listening to us live right now, you may be listening to us on KPNL Radio, which you can find at KPNL Radio at kpnl-db.com. You may also find us live on eTalk Radio, which you can find on etalk.tv/radio. We're also live right now on Spreaker, which you can find under We Are Paradox Media. If you want to watch, make sure you tune into us under We Are Paradox Media at YouTube, as well as Twitch, and what is the other one? Facebook. As I said, under We Are Paradox Media. I used to do it under my page, but I came to the realization certain people don't need to know my full name, so if you know me, you know me, and generally you can find it that way, but not going to give that information out over the airwaves. If you want to listen to us in your free time, whether you're working it or working out, tune in under We Are Paradox Media at Spreaker, Twitter, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iTunes, Castbox, Tumblr, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Deezer, Podcast Addict, Podcast Chaser, Podvine, Podbean, Owltail.com, GeoSarn, which is JIOSAARN, as well as VLC. Basically, any place that you listen to your podcast, go and check us out over there. So I got my lunch in, ate half of this. Pretty mama there. I was very sad because they messed up two of my sandwiches. One was supposed to be a ultimate BMT, which it was just a little tiny BMT. That was for my husband. And then mine was supposed to come with extra pickles. And yeah, they had no pickles at all. So I was very disappointed as far as that went. So tonight it is story time, with me, TessaTNT. And yeah, we are going to be reading from the world's 100 Greatest Mysteries, Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed. And we've been reading on this for a while, but look, we just have a little bit of this left, so who knows? We may be able to get through this evening. And then in the very last hour, due to our listeners, I don't want to do videos in the first hour, so we're saving it for the last hour. So for those of you who are watching, we're going to do some... that's weird. I just heard a male voice come through my headphones. Weird. There's nobody but me on here, but yeah, we're going to do some YouTube videos. Joe Rogan. It was going to be ghost stories and alien stories, but it was too long to do both, so I chose to do the alien ones. So if you're interested, please tune in for the third hour. So during this book, the first chapter we have is on Nostradamus. In an age when soothsayers and witches were routinely burned at the stake, it is somewhat amazing that a figure with a reputation of Michel de Nostradam survived to become one of the most famous and beloved men in all of Europe. Part prophet and part witch doctor, the French-born scholar, credited with saving thousands of lives during outbreaks of bubonic plague during the 16th century, achieved almost saint-like status among the masses, and went on to become a close consort to queens and kings throughout Europe. Some saw his uncanny ability to heal and foretell future events as the work of the devil. Others, however, regarded his strange powers as a special gift and sought to take advantage of it. Nostradam, or Nostradamus, as he was better known, did not start out on such a favorable footing. Born in Saint Remy, France, on December 14, 1503, he encountered considerable prejudice early on because of his Jewish ancestry. At Avignon, he learned philosophy, classical literature, history, medicine, and grammar. His special interests were herbal and folk medicine and astrology, then generally regarded as a legitimate science. He also published almanacs, which were popular items in 16th century Europe. Nostradamus's almanacs became bestsellers, filled with the usual predictions about weather and crop conditions, but also containing secret prophecies that made them wildly popular throughout France and much of Europe. When the plague struck France in the early 16th century, he stopped publishing almanacs and went to work treating patients by administering his special concoction, which was rose pills, which consisted of ground rose petals, sawdust, which is in a lot of our diets here in the United States, iris, clovis, calamus, and lignulose. He refused to bleed his patients, the customary treatment for everything from minor colds to Black Death. In 1537, plague struck the city of Agen, where the famed physician, poet, philosopher, and publisher lived with his wife and 2 children. Although he managed to save hundreds of lives, his own family perished in the epidemic. Devastated, the great healer spent the next 6 years wandering Europe, questioning his abilities and the meaning of life. And that's how it is, like when you have spiritual gifts and you're able to help so many people, and then bad things happen to you. My husband likes to make the joke of like, well, he should have saw that coming, but at the same time, your gifts are meant for other people, not so much for yourself. So a lot of us who do have gifts do suffer through such things as that. It was during this period of dark torment that Nostradamus became aware of another special gift, the power of prophecy. Retreating to his study in the dead of night, he would consult magic mirrors, divining rods, a brass bowl, and other magical instruments to conjure up visions of future events. In 1550, he published his first almanac of prophecies. The prophecies, written in a curious blend of French, Greek, Latin, and Italian, made Nostradamus a household name in Europe. Nearly 1,000 prophetic verses were written, each containing 4 lines, known as quatrains. These were arranged in 10 books called centuries. The centuries contained prophecies covering nearly the next 2,250 years, until the year 3797. Nostradamus did not reveal how he arrived at his prophecies. The best guess is that he wrote preliminary by inspiration. That is, he wrote down whatever verses came to him while working alone in his study late at night. Like most prophetic writing, Nostradamus's centuries are couched in obscure, archaic, almost unfathomable riddles, puns, anagrams, and epigrams. His most famous early prophecy, contained in stanza 35 of Century 1, apparently concerned King Henry II, though the king's name is never stated. The young lion will overcome the old one on the field of battle in a single combat. He will put out his eyes in a cage of gold. 2 fleets won, then to die a cruel death. On July 1st, 559, English King Henry was riding in a tournament against young Gabriel de Lorges, Comte de Montgomery, captain of the Scottish Guard. The lances of the 2 riders met and splintered. Montgomery dropped his shaft a second too late, and the jagged point pierced the king's gleaming gold visor and entered his left eye, killing him. That's pretty bad. Other quatrains predicted the coming of 3 antichrists. Some scholars have detected references to Napoleon, Hitler, and a third harmful world leader, not yet identified. The verse also has said to refer to the overthrow of the Shah of Iran and the rise of Saddam Hussein of Iraq. Some contemporaries saw Nostradamus' prophecies as a curse and burned him in effigy. The Catholic Church also took a dim view of the prophecies, especially when they turned out to be bad, and threatened to burn him. But one of the prophet's most powerful fans was Queen Catherine de' Medici, who not only protected him from enemies, but also required regular forecasts of her children's future. Nostradamus was said to have conjured up an angel who showed Catherine a bright and promising future for her children by looking in a mirror. The prophet fell ill in mid-1556 on July 1st. He told friends gathered at his bedside, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." True to form, he died that night. In his will, Nostradamus expressed the curious wish to be buried standing upright, supposedly, so that boorish people would not step on his body. That makes sense. His body was placed within the walls of the Church of Candeliers of Ceylon. The Latin inscription on his tomb reads, "Here rest the bones of the illustrious Michael Nostradamus, alone of all mortals, judged worthy to record with his near-divine pen, under the influence of the stars, the future events of the entire world." Death of the Wunderkind. He was the wunderkind of his age. Excuse me. I have a lot of fair dust in my lungs. A brilliant, brooding child genius whose dazzling symphonic and operatic compositions made him an international star long before he was old enough to shave. Yet, when Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart died shortly before Christmas in 1791 at the age of 35, the musical master of the classical era, the child prodigy who had composed his first symphony at age 4, was unceremoniously dumped into an unmarked pauper's grave and buried. What the heck? I just can't believe that. For years after his death, rumors swirled through the old capitals of Europe that Mozart had been murdered. Rumors had been fed by the ravings of Antonio Salieri, a mediocre rival who actually claimed to have poisoned the mighty musician himself. Salieri's claims were generally dismissed as the wild musings of a deranged competitor who sought fame by associating his name with the masterful Mozart. Another theory held that Mozart was assassinated by a conspiracy of Freemasons, even though the young Austrian's own doctors diagnosed the death as a heated military fever, quaint 18th century jargon for beats us. The truth is, other doctors who examined Mozart's corpse were never quite sure what he died of. Some suspected that he had succumbed to tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, or streptococcal infection. A common theory today is that he died of uremia following chronic kidney disease. A more recent suggestion is that the boy wonder probably died of chronic subdural hematoma, a slow leakage of venous blood into the space between the skull and the brain. Miles Drake, a neurologist at Ohio State University, who has studied Mozart's skull for clues, theorizes that a crack in the left temple indicates the musician probably fell and hit his head, perhaps in a drunken stupor. Mozart drank heavily during the last month of his life, presumably out of frustration at his inability to gain a desirable post and despondent over his poverty. In all likelihood, such an injury would have torn veins leading from the surface of the brain, allowing blood to leak into the subdural space, which lies between the dura mater, the brain's protective membrane, and the skull, Dr. Drake said. As the blood accumulated and dried, it would have put increasing pressure on Mozart's left hemisphere that would have made him subject to the mood swings and depression that characterized the composer's final days. Dr. Drake said the injury could also have impaired the faculties controlled by the left hemisphere, including his ability to coordinate movements of the right side of his body and to compose music, which was very important to him. There is no evidence, however, that Mozart's musical abilities were impaired toward the end of his life. On the contrary, it was in 1791 that he wrote one of his greatest operas, The Magic Flute. The unfinished work for which he is equally famous, Requiem, was actually composed on his deathbed. Chronic depression, black thoughts, and headaches figure prominently in Mozart's 1790 letters to Michael Hochberg, a wealthy merchant whom he repeatedly begged for loans. Death was a common theme in his thoughts and letters. I thank my God for graciously granting me the opportunity of learning that death is the key which unlocks the doors to our true happiness, he once wrote. On another occasion he wrote, I have formed, during the last few years, such close relations with this best and truest friend of mankind, death, that his image is not only no longer terrifying to me, but is indeed very soothing and consoling. Morbid mutterings like these led some attending physicians to suspect the young musician was suffering from a deposit on the brain. In the 18th century, neurological terms, said Dr. Drake, that could have been anything from a brain abscess to a stroke to a brain tumor or a chronic subdural hematoma. Yet, the old rumors that he was murdered would not go away, even though no evidence has been found to support such views. After his death, other myths flourished as well, including the gossip about the relationship between his wife, Constance, and his best friend, Franz Sussmayer. Some musical historians have suggested that Sussmayer, who inherited the task of completing a requiem following Mozart's death, might have actually been the real father of Franz Xavier Wolfgang, the son who inherited Mozart's musical inclinations. One cold November morning, Mozart was found slumped unconscious at his desk. He spent the last 2 weeks of his life in bed, struggling in vain to complete Requiem. Shortly past midnight on December 5th, 1791, the master of symphonies and author of more than 600 musical masterpieces drew his last breath. Amid a howling rainstorm, the disease-racked body of the greatest musician in the history of the world was quietly laid to rest in a common grave because he was unable to afford a proper Christian burial. That is so frustrating to me. Being a Christian should not cost anything. Being buried as a Christian as well should not cost anything. Hello, beautiful Sister Sandra. Let me just type in here really quick. Spear of Destiny. Once a week, the huge double doors of Vienna's Hofburg Museum would open and a pale, shabbily dressed young man would step through and head straight for a special exhibit featuring the treasures of the House of Habsburg. There, transfixed by the glittering crowns and other jeweled displays behind the glass cases, he would often stand for hours, not moving or speaking until ushered away at closing time. Of special interest to the young visitor was one particular object, the remains of a spear, dull and black with age. According to legend, the spear point was none other than the one used by a Roman centurion named Longinus to kill Jesus as he hung on the cross. For his bloody sin, Longinus was cursed to walk the earth forever, or at least until the time of the apocalypse. The year was 1909. The visitor was a struggling young Austrian artist named Adolf Hitler. Had they just accepted his art, none of this other stuff would happen, but a lot of us have learned that things do happen for a reason, no matter how good or bad, so. For the next 3 decades, until his death in 1945, the fanatical leader of Germany's Third Reich sought to possess the famous spear, not so much for its historical and religious value, but because of its purported mystical properties. Tradition held that the owner of the spear of Longinus, also called the Spear of Destiny, the Spear of Hofsburg, the Spear of the Holy Grail, and occasionally the Spear of Christ, would possess the power to conquer the world. But the relic also carried a terrible curse. Whoever controlled the relic and then lost it would suffer defeat and death. Some said Alaric carried the Holy Lance when he sacked Rome. King Heinrich of Saxony had it in his possession when he defeated the Magyars, not sure how that's pronounced. Pope John the 7th? Or is that the 12th? Is thought to have used it to christen Heinrich's son Otto the Great as Holy Roman Emperor. Otto later used the spear when he defeated the Mongolian hordes in the Battle of Lech. Constantine the Great claimed that he was guided by divine providence via the spear in his victory at Milvian Bridge, which established Christianity as the official religion of the Holy Roman Empire. Charlemagne later acquired the spear, then Charles Martel, Frederick Barbarossa, and a long list of other great generals. emperors, and statesmen who profited politically and militarily. Some lost the lance and paid the price. Charlemagne died after accidentally dropping it. Barbarossa drowned while crossing a river after letting the lance slip from his hands into the water. Even Napoleon sought the lance, but failed in his attempt to acquire the relic when enemies beat him to it following the Battle of Austerlitz. Austerlitz? The spear finally wound up in the possession of the House of the Habsburgs, and by the early 1900s was part of the collection stored in Hofburg Museum. It was there that Hitler, a young painter living in Vienna, learned about the lance and its mystical reputation. Dr. Walter Stein, who accompanied Hitler on one visit, said, "When we first stood side by side in front of the Spear of Destiny, it appeared to me that Hitler was in so deep a condition of trance that he was suffering almost complete sense denudation and a total lack of self-consciousness." Later, Hitler reportedly said, "I stood there quietly gazing upon it for several minutes, quite oblivious to the scene around me. It seemed to carry some hidden inner meaning which evaded me, a meaning which I felt inwardly I knew, yet could not bring to consciousness. I felt as though I myself had held it before in some early century of history, that I myself had once claimed it as my talisman over power and held the destiny of the world in my hands." The historians say that Hitler saw the lance as his mystical connection with generations of conquering Germanic leaders that had come before him. Soon after rising to power as Chancellor of Germany, Hitler moved quickly to annex Austria into his Third Reich. One of his first actions was to claim his Spear of Destiny from the Hofburg Museum. On October 13th, 1938, the lance was loaded onto an armored train and sent to Nuremberg, heart of the Nazi movement. There he kept it in a vault at St. Catherine's Church throughout most of the world. To protect it from Allied bombing raids, Hitler had the mystical relic moved to a specially constructed vault beneath Nuremberg Castle. Finally, on April 30th, 1945, U.S. troops who had fought their way into Nuremberg in the face of fierce resistance entered the vault and came upon the spear. Completely unaware that his treasured artifact had fallen into enemies' hands, Hitler committed suicide in his Berlin bunker. Or did he? Just 80 minutes after, Lieutenant Walter William Horn had seized the spear in the name of the United States of America. Some historians saw Hitler's obsession with the spear as proof that Nazism is more than just a political system aimed at world conquests. Nazism, wrote Jean-Michel Agamben, or Engelbert, a French historian and author of The Occult and the Third Reich, was the only most recent outcropping of a militant neo-paganism locked in a death struggle with its arch-enemy, traditional Christianity, a struggle which will go on to the end of time. Hitler's own words, uttered in 1944, hinted at the darker side of Nazism. He who has seen in National Socialism only a political movement has seen nothing. Today, the spear is back in the Hofburg Museum, an ancient relic with a notorious past. The shaft is long gone, but the spearhead, held together by gold, silver, and bronze thread, and containing a knell from the crucifix, remains a favorite attraction, drawing thousands of visitors from around the world each year. That to me is pretty insane. This chapter is called Bizarre Notions. Millions of years ago, the Earth was a giant snowball. A barren blob of dirty, gray ice and rock floating lifelessly through the primordial void. Then, one day, the ice began to melt. Slowly at first, and then faster and faster as temperatures rose and the Maldive glaciers dripped northward. Then it happened again. Another thick blanket of ice moved down from the north, wrapping the frigid planet in a crusty mantle of glaring white ice. As before, the ice finally began to melt, and warmer temperatures returned. According to scientists, this freeze-thaw process repeated itself many times over the long history of Earth. And while all that was going on, budding young life forms came and went, struggling to survive the dramatic changes taking place on the young planet. Nobody knows what caused the Earth to freeze, what brought the huge sheets of ice marching down from the harsh northern realms to blanket the globe in a ghastly white pale. Nor does anybody know what caused the glaciers to finally reverse themselves, unleashing the sudden thaw that led to the evolution of complex organisms. It now seems that the first of these freeze-thaw cycles started about 2.2 billion years ago, when gargantuan glacial movements covered the northern hemisphere as far south as Panama and Costa Rica. The only forms of life on the planet then, simple, single-celled microbes, probably survived by burrowing underground or under the sea and adapting to chemosynthesis rather than photosynthesis. But an even greater catastrophe struck the Earth between 600 and 800 million years ago. This time, monster sheets of ice reached as far south as the tropics, in essence covering the entire globe, freezing and suffocating the planet's budding life forms. Once again, Snowball Earth was saved by a dramatic warming trend. Glaciers melted, rivers flowed wild, rising temperatures and the abundance of water led to the rapid development of new species around the planet. Chemical and isotopic analysis of rocks laid down in parts of Africa shows that the Earth went through at least 4 deep ice ages, each lasting millions of years. As more ice formed, the colder the Earth got. The dropping temperatures and icy glare reflected the sun's heat back into space, causing the planet to get even colder. One of the biggest mysteries in science is what caused each of these ancient ice ages to end. As glaciers grew bigger and thicker, why didn't temperatures continue to fall, transforming the Earth into a permanent snowball? Some scientists theorize that a sudden rise in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, perhaps belched up from volcanoes, created a temporary greenhouse effect that led to a rapid rising of temperatures and the bloom of new species. Sea-dwelling snails and worms may have hastened this process along by stirring up carbon-rich sediments in the ocean. Another theory is that overturning ocean currents release large amounts of carbon dioxide trapped on the ocean floor. According to Dr. Alan J. Kaufman, a geophysicist at Harvard University, this process would have warmed the planet significantly. What would cause the water to turn over and liberate carbon dioxide from the depths of the ocean? I'm not sure, but there's also a lake out there that is pretty calm, but once a year it will turn over. So what's at the bottom will turn over and go to the top. And sometimes it actually turns white. It's pretty insane. Mid-ocean ridges are continually emitting gas, said Dr. Joseph L. Kirschvik, another Harvard researcher. At some point, the buildup of gases might have become unstable, and like champagne surging from a bottle, this could have created an explosive upsurge of water that would have fractured the ice above and released carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. This scenario suggests that carbon dioxide spewing into the air trapped heat from the sun and contributed to the planet's steady warming trend. While this theory remains controversial, most climatologists agree that one way or another, carbon dioxide probably holds the key to the mystery of ancient glaciations, as well as the evolution of life itself. In the words of Harvard University professor Paul F. Hoffman, this was the start of the biggest explosion of animal diversity in the history of life. Cosmic invaders. About 65 million years ago, a huge extraterrestrial object slammed into the Earth, kicking up a global cloud of dust and debris that cloaked the world in darkness and wiped out many life forms, including dinosaurs. Could it happen again? Such a doomsday scenario seemed unthinkable, the stuff of science fiction. Now comes alarming new evidence that death-dealing asteroids and killer comets have been frequent visitors to Earth, and that a catastrophe similar to the one that annihilated the dinosaurs could happen again. Scientists who specialize in the study of asteroids say the risk of death from a cosmic strike is greater than being killed in a plane crash. Whew, thank goodness. Now I won't be afraid of planes anymore. The risk is real, admitted David Morrison, a top researcher for the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, who recently co-chaired a team of government experts investigating the peril. A report issued by the team warned that the greatest hazard posed by an asteroid strike derives from the global veil of dust injected into the atmosphere and the stratosphere. An impact would lead to worldwide crop failures and consequent mass mortality, and would threaten the survival of civilization. For ages, people gazing at the night sky have been fascinated, bewildered, and at times frightened by sudden streaks of bright light. Comets, fireballs, and other cosmic phenomenon were usually seen as divine omens or attributed to supernatural forces. Whole civilizations sometimes rose or fell based on their interpretations of celestial fireworks. But, as Dr. Morrison and other scientists have shown, the reality seems far stranger and more terrifying than ancient stargazers could possibly have imagined. Using sophisticated land-based sensors and orbiting satellites, researchers have discovered that colossal space rocks streaking through the cosmos bear down on Earth far more frequently than previously thought. Just look at the moon. These things are flying around all the time. They're hitting, causing craters, impacts, etc. It's pretty crazy. Impacts rarely occur because they detonate upon entering the atmosphere. Should one of these monster intruders get through, however, it could be devastating. Such a strike could radically alter life on Earth as we know it, said one astronomer at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, which I'm pretty sure that's been shut down. Until recently, it was believed that the rocky objects, anywhere from a few feet in diameter to 90 or so feet wide, strike 7 or 8 times a year. New evidence indicates that bombardment occurs more often, perhaps 12 to 15 times annually. These blasts light the sky with brilliant fireballs, but are rarely seen because they often occur over the sea or uninhabited land. Dr. Douglas O. Revelle, a meteorologist at Los Alamos, said, "At a minimum, these cosmic intruders produce blasts as big as a nuclear warhead or 1 kiloton. Fair dust, equal to 1,000 tons of high explosive. In 1908, for example, a speeding object exploded over Siberia with a force of some 20 hydrogen bombs. The resulting shockwave flattened hundreds of square miles of forecasts, and forests and reverberated around the world. A similar impact thought to have occurred in Arizona about 20,000 years ago. In the 1980s, a team of astronomers proposed that the planet faces great danger from these giant cosmic intruders. Secret data released by the military after the end of the Cold War seemed to confirm those fears. In 1993 and 1994, for example, one secret information showed that Earth had sustained 136 explosions high in the atmosphere from 1975 to 1992, an average of 8 a year. The blasts were calculated to have intensities roughly equal to 500 to 15,000 tons of high explosives, or the power of small atomic warheads. Today, Los Alamos monitors dangerous cosmic activity. Findings reveal that Earth is bombarded on average by 10 or 11 objects that are 6 or 7 feet wide and produce explosions equal to 1 kiloton nuclear blasts. In addition, they report at least one fairly large extraterrestrial object about 20 feet wide roars into the atmosphere each year, setting off a blast equal to 15 kiloton explosion. Such an impact, of course, could have devastating effect on the Earth. To help guard against such a calamity, the nations of the world are trying to band together in an effort to build a defense system that would include early warning monitors as well as a nuclear shield. In the early 1990s, disaster was narrowly averted when an asteroid traveling at 46,000 miles per hour and measuring more than half a mile in diameter passed within 500,000 miles of the Earth. About twice the distance to the moon. On the cosmic scale of things, that was a close call, said Henry Holt, the retired U.S. Geological Survey scientist who detected the asteroid. Had the asteroid struck, Dr. Holt said, it would have been enough to destroy a good-sized country. But had it hit the ocean, it would have created a tidal wave that would have washed over vast areas of coastal regions. This was explained by Bevan French, a scientist in NASA's Solar System Exploration Division. It would have been a very major catastrophe for which we have had no experience. Sooner or later, warn astronomers, another major asteroid will collide with Earth. When that occurs, a cataclysm never before witnessed by humans will occur. Some fear it could be the end of the world. And it's pretty amazing, as far as I've been seeing on YouTube and other places. That's generally where I go, and I'll see different videos, and then I'll see different news people putting out different news projects. Sometimes it's repetitive, just like with Maui. My heart and my prayers go out to Maui and the people there, and the death toll keeps rising. At first it was, I want to say low, but not really. It was about 60 people who had perished. These were people that were found on the streets. Now they're going to go into these homes and look and see who had died there. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze. They're finding people that didn't get the warning. There was no sirens, nothing like that to tell them to evacuate. And they're saying they put these things out as far as cell phones, but a lot of cell phone towers and stuff were down. So people weren't getting the messages. And so a lot of people died in their homes, huddled in a mass, like just hugging each other and hoping this would be quick. Could you imagine, like, being with your family and that happening to you? To me, it's super catastrophic. The Demon Cloud. Something horrible happened on the morning of August 16th, 1984, near Lake Nyos in the African nation of Cameroon. According to witnesses, a demon cloud rose from the dark waters and sucked out the souls of more than 1,000 villagers on their way to work. Survivors say it came dawn and struck without warning. There was nowhere for anyone to hide, nowhere for anyone to run, one terrified witness told an American newspaper reporter. The demon cloud engulfed them all and sucked out their spirits. Witch doctors believe an ancient spirit came from the lake to punish wrongdoers. They say the spirit appeared as a lethal mist, rising more than 500 feet into the air. Government officials suspected terrorism was behind the deaths. It was a time of political unrest, and armed bands of guerrillas roamed the backcountry creating havoc. But scientists insist that the spirit was a lethal cloud of carbon dioxide, gas that belched up from the bottom of the lake. Dr. David M. Rupp, a former professor of paleontology at the University of Chicago, said the carbon dioxide theory offers the only plausible explanation for the catastrophe. It's a good thing that someone has brought up the supposed possibility, he told the New York Times. I think we're on the right track. Periodic eruptions of carbon dioxide gas have been common in the Earth's long geologic past. In fact, say some researchers, the Lake Nyos tragedy is very similar to one that happened some 250 million years ago, when about 90% of the planet's animal species were wiped out. Sorry, that was my cell phone for some reason. That mass extinction, which came at the end of the Permian period, is thought to have been caused by a tremendous volcanic eruption in Siberia that spewed huge amounts of dust and carbon dioxide into the air, known as the Siberian Traps eruption. That event helped reshuffle Earth's genetic deck, making way for the rise of dinosaurs in the subsequent Mesozoic era. Although carbon dioxide is a normal respiration product of animal metabolism, too much of this compound is dangerous. Dissolved in blood, carbon dioxide forms carbonic acid, which acidifies the blood. Too much causes acidosis, which can kill animals, especially maritime organisms with low metabolic rates. Few scientists suggest that carbon dioxide released into the air could have reached levels high enough to kill land animals. But air, unusually rich in carbon dioxide, could produce a heightened greenhouse effect, trapping energy from sunlight and raising global temperatures, which would be dangerous to some animals and destroy habitats needed by others. Dr. Richard Bombach, a geologist at Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University at Blacksburg, Virginia, believes that the Permian mass extinction could have been touched off by the impact of an asteroid such as the one believed to have wiped out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Although the conditions that may have made the Permian seas a killer probably do not exist in modern oceans. Certain inland lakes with high levels of carbon dioxide dissolved in deep water pose threats to nearby people and animals. It's still a theory, but a very acceptable one at the moment, noted Dr. William C. Evans of the United States Geological Survey. Chemical surveys at Lake Nyos showed that the content of the water was 96% carbon dioxide, an unusual discovery since decaying organic matter usually causes an equal mixture of carbon dioxide and methane. The study further revealed that the mixture appeared to be volcanic in origin. The leader of the team of investigators, Haraldur Sigurdsson of the University of Rhode Island, thought he had located the culprit at the bottom of Lake Manaum, a smoldering volcano. In Dr. Sigurdsson's mind, the volcano had perhaps belched a deadly cloud of carbon dioxide that asphyxiated the villagers. But the results of more tests didn't jibe with his history and his theory. For one thing, there was no detectable sulfur and the chlorine and fluorine content was low. If we had a burst of hot volcanic The Icelandic scientist noted, these should have been high. Where had the carbon dioxide come from? Surkiston reasoned that rather than giving off a sudden enormous spurt, the volcano had been quietly exhaling carbon dioxide into the crater for many years, perhaps centuries. Because of the increased pressure at that depth, the water can hold much more gas than usual. The bottom layer of the lake had become supersaturated with the deadly mixture. Surkiston suspects that just before midnight on August 15th, an earthquake triggered a landslide that caused Monaun's waters to turn over and allowed the pressurized water to escape. The result of the runaway pressure decrease was powerful enough to cause a 15-foot wave, noted Surkiston, adding that the possibility of an even larger disaster scuttled an energy project at volcanic Lake Kivu in East Africa in 1970s. Today, more than a decade after Monaun exhaled its killer cloud, the people of the region worry if the demon cloud will come again. Scientists share their concern. Some fear that one dark night, when the wind is still and there is a low rumble in the earth, Cameroon's killer lake may strike again. Bum, bum, ba-dum. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we do have to go to our second music break. On this break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band Antidote for Savages, and she's going to be singing Your Skeleton, Our New Reality, Let Me Be Your Home, and Lemurian Crypto. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. fooled again. Don't be fooled again by your skeleton. I won't be fooled again. You'll have to go it alone. I know it won't right. You'll have to go it alone. Skylines and all those neon lights. I'm flying high tonight. Where are you at tonight? Run away, fall into my mystery. Don't cry, baby, 'cause I don't cry. Come with me to our new reality. You don't need all the shit that he brings anymore. You're mine. You're mine. Tonight. You're mine. In a sea of broken hearts, won't let you fall apart. We'll make a brand new start when you coming back. I wanna take a ride. I wanna show you love. I wanna knock you down. Come with me to our new reality. You don't need all the shit that he brings anymore. You're mine. You're mine. Tonight. You're mine.
Come with me to our new reality. You don't need all the shit that he brings anymore. You're mine. You're mine. Tonight. You're mine. You're mine. You're mine.
Sorry, guys. I was in, I love it. I have my camera, and okay, so I had a lens much longer than this, comparable to Robert White's in Australia. He's got a really big lens. All the girls say so. But yeah, it was for SLS, which is film and not a regular camera. And so last night I took some fair pictures. I'm like, you guys, it's the last night. And there's that fair thing. It's got hay bales and everything. It's fucking funny what I got. Okay, so let me go back. 2020 fair. Oh shit. 2023 county fair. Okay, so then there's Waylon checking out this sawdust. Funny. Let me try to find this on here. Okay. Oh man, I gotta replay it. Sorry, I would generally share this on screen, but so here's Nova, Waylon, and Dylan in front of the La Plata County Fair 2023. And then check this out. This is my favorite picture of the night. There's Dylan on his dad's back and Nova like, check it out. And then there's Gravy, the prize cow right there, aka Waylon Grimes. And then there's Dylan taking care of the cows. He was such a good boy. He actually helped this steer. See that lead coming off of its face? He actually got it wrapped around his leg. Don't mind Waylon there. That's his dad. So, whatever's going on in their family goes on in their family. We have no qualms about it. But check out this deer or ram. It's a horny ram. Like, it's got 4 horns. 2 up, 2 down. Where's the 2 in the middle? That to me is intense. Let me see what else I got. Okay, so there's the horny ram. 2 up, 2 down. I like that picture of the boot with the flowers coming out. We're like, hey, Waylon, where'd you get that rose? He's like, don't ask. And then there's Dylan again, caring for the cows. And it was a good year, all in all. We had some issues like night 2 and 3. We had people coming in intoxicated, even holding their beers and stuff and being like, there's a perp in here. And yes, there was one that was going around that was hitting on the little girls. You know, at first it was the teenagers. Then he found the 8, 9, 10 years old. And so he found him one day and then found him again. And then he's like, I'll see you later. And blew him a kiss. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Let me check my sound volume really quick. Wrong one. Let's go back over here. Actually, it doesn't look too bad as far as where it's at, so we'll just leave it be. But yeah, it was a good year. Last night, I was expecting to go in after the show. Saturday nights are generally really freaking crazy as far as the fair goes, and nobody down at the barn messing with any animals. It was like, what a blessing. And we tried to turn off the lights, but we couldn't. There were some security lights on, and so we couldn't turn those off, which was cool. At least we can see without like clicking our flashlights on and stuff, trying to see what's going on across the barn. But yeah, it was a good year, all in all, and I laughed so hard last night taking those pictures. Like, my stomach hurt. It was freaking hilarious. If you didn't see the pictures, like, you got to go back during the show and check out what time it is right now, and then scurry back like at least 5 minutes, and you'll see them. But it was pretty freaking funny, you guys. But yeah, it was a good year. The only issue we had was, you know, a whole group or fiery squad of people looking for the drunkard guy, hitting on their kids. And I guess he was alone the first day, and then the second day he came and he brought a female, and she was touching the stairs inappropriately, which to me means like she's playing with his Culkin bowls or what? Like, what is wrong with you? And then she actually jumped on the stairs back. I'm thinking it must have been during the Bellamy Brothers concert, because that's the only time that the barn was left unattended. So, all right. So we're continuing on with the world's 100 greatest mysteries. Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed. This is by Randall Floyd. It's been a really good book. I inherited this from my grandpapa. The Black Plague is the next chapter. And like I said, please, don't pay attention to my luggage here. It's just a week's worth of overnight security. Security. The Black Plague. The invisible killer came from the east, riding the night wind aboard creaking old sailing vessels bound for Rome, Marseilles, Lisbon, and beyond the fog-shroud British Isles. Before it was over, the bodies of some 25 million people, a quarter of Europe's population, lay in the ground. No other calamity has caused more death and suffering than the Black Plague of the 14th century. Percentage-wise, the scourge of that struck within a 4-year period, 1347 to 1351, took more lives than all the world wars combined. Today, it is thought that this devastation was started by bacteria carried by fleas lodged in the hair of a type of fair-ranging rat that flourished in Central Asia. Victims caught the disease either from the bite of the fleas or from the bodily discharges of infected persons. That's gross. To medieval folk, the plague looked like nothing less than God's terrible punishment for humanity's sin. From Central Asia, the horror traveled to Crimea with trade caravans, then by ship to the Mediterranean coasts, and onward across Europe at a relentless pace. Normal life ceased. Fields were left untilled. Cattle turned loose to fend for themselves. Corpses were soon being buried, one on top of another, in shallow graves, tipped wholesale into pits or consumed by the flames. City life ground to a halt as contagion spread and people fled for their homes. Even the air seemed polluted with what a contemporary chronicle described as an unbearable stench, so fatigued as to be overpowering. Like, I can imagine you could smell this horrible, like, death smell, and then eventually it's just like, the cat lady. She's got so many cats, and she lives by the cat box, and then she just grows used to the smell. Well, I don't smell death anymore, or that damn cat box. Sorry, my door was open. I had to close it. The disease had 3 forms. Bubonic, characterized by the swelling of lymph nodes in the armpits, the groin, and the site of flea bite. Generally, it's here in your armpits and then other places around your body. In your groin, what is that? Pneumonic, infecting the lungs and causing the coughing up of blood, or, most deadly of all, septicemic, in which the bloodstream was rapidly invaded by offending bacteria, making death inevitable within hours. Bleeding, lancing laxatives, and enemas were common but futile methods of fighting the unknown killer. Various hazard potions ranging from powdered stag's horn to rare spices and compounds of gold were also prescribed. Aromatic woods were burned and they would purify the air. The floors were sprinkled with rose water and vinegar, measures that succeeded only in masking the stench of decaying flesh. As the Black Death continued its sweep across Europe, bizarre religious sects sprang up, including the Brotherhood of Flagellants, a fanatical cult that had originated in Eastern Europe in the 16th, aka 13th century, it soon spread across the continent. Flagellants believed an angel had brought down a letter from heaven stating that the plague was punishment imposed by God and that he might be brought to relent only by human acts of self-punishment. So that's where the whole whipping of oneself, 20 lashings with a wet needle, will let me do it myself. Jeez, oh, Pete. So the flagellants would set forth on so-called pilgrimages, marching in somber lines, 2 abreast, eyes fixed on the ground. Each carried boards, which they used to beat each other mercilessly whenever they encountered onlookers. So somebody's looking, we gotta beat each other's asses. You ready? Here we go. Whack. Then they're hitting each other with boards. That, to me, is insane. So the pilgrimages lasted for 33 and a half days, the number of years in Christ's life, and during those days, the flagellants were forbidden to wash or to clean their wounds. Why? Oh, sorry, I stuck my fingers in the fan. That hurt. But why? Why not cleanse yourself? Why not protect yourself from these various plagues? I don't get it. Invisible Killers is the next chapter. Invisible killers. For countless eons, they lay hidden in the tropical gloom of the world's rainforests. Millions of natural-born killers, too small to be seen with the naked eye. But with the gradual destruction of the ecosystem, many of these ancient predators, highly contagious microscopic organisms with a ravenous taste for blood, have awakened to wreak havoc on humanity. Tens of thousands of people, mostly from tropical regions in Africa, were timber crews, farmers, and hunters threatened to destroy the forests, have died from exotic viral infestations since the late 1970s, when scientists first became aware of the disease and started to track their spread. Death comes swiftly and painfully to those whose bodies are invaded by the unseen killers. Victims vomit black blood as internal organs bleed out and muscle and bone tissue dissolve like jelly. That is so disturbing. Ew. Eyeballs literally pop out. The brain hemorrhages, the heart explodes, the liver turns to pudding, and the intestines fill with blood before the victim lapses, mercifully, into a coma and dies. Like, I think at that point, it's just like you lapse into a coma because that's as much as your body can take. Vampire-like and hungry agents, officially known as filoviruses, go upborn to seek new hosts. Fresh meat. Entire villages have been wiped out in Central Africa by a single infestation. Some authorities say it's only a matter of time before major outbreaks reach the industrialized world. When that happens, millions upon millions of people could die from various viral strains that make AIDS look like the whooping cough. And the whooping cough is scary. Like, my second oldest daughter suffered from that, and I'd have to pull over and rip her out of her car seat. She's like purple, like Barney the dinosaur. I have to smack her back and get her back to breathing naturally. It was so scary. In recent years, popular books and movies like The Hot Zone and Outbreak have brought public attention to the reality of emerging viruses and the potential for disastrous epidemics. While these works created some false impressions, the basic message was clear. Either the world wakes up to the danger and takes corrective action, or it may be the end of the line for the human race. Why is all this happening now? It's kind of hard to understand, right? In a sense, say some environmentalists, the Earth is getting even with the human race for having disturbed its delicate ecosystem. How dare you invade me and pollute my whole environment, my sense of living? Centuries of wanton destruction by plows, axes, and bulldozers have upset the balance of nature, and now Mother Nature is exacting a terrible revenge. She's very angry. She's done with this shit. The Earth is under attack by growing populations of humans, said one microbiologist. The tropical rainforests are only trying to defend themselves. Oh wait, lower. So, Richard Preston, the author of The Hot Zone, a terrifying true book about a near outbreak in Washington, D.C. in the late 1980s. Perhaps the biosphere does not like the idea of 5 billion humans. It is beginning to react to the humans' parasite, the flooding infection of people, the dead spots of concrete all over the planet, the cancerous rot-outs in Europe, Japan, and the United States thick with replicating primates. The colonies enlarging and spreading and threatening the shock, the biosphere with massive extinctions. Outbreaks of previously unknown viruses, particularly Ebola, Marburg, and Reston, are increasingly rapid and rapidly growing in tropic zones around the world. Scientists gloomily predict that even more deadly viruses will emerge from the rainforest as civilization presses deeper into untrammeled regions. I'm sure that we're going to see in the future a lot of new diseases, said Dr. Elaine Georges, a virologist. It's just that obvious. Did you realize how obvious it is? Well, he's pretty into himself, I think. Archaeological evidence shows that the current outbreaks are not the first to wreak havoc in tropical islands and lands. In ages past, as humans cleared brush, plowed fields, and pressed deeper into the forest, they stirred up viruses left over from an earlier primeval age, an era. And that's what I'm talking about as far as Antarctica and all these other places where icebergs are melting. There's different things being released into our environment. Not COVID or anything like that. Those are man-made agents, but could you imagine all the CO2, all the different viruses, like just reaching? Sorry, I had to reach closer. Reaching to infect us because it's like, hello, I was born 500,000 years ago and I'm back again. Nice to meet you. Cheers.
No.
What?
What's today?
Well, today is Sunday. Let's see, yeah. It's Sunday.
Where?
Monday is tomorrow, and then Tuesday you go to school. If you're going to talk to us, you guys need to come over here.
Mom, is it the 13th?
It is. It's Sunday, the 13th. No, the 15th is school.
That's for Floyd, not for me.
Okay, well, look again, but pretty sure you're either there with him or a day later.
No, I'm not there with him.
How do you know?
Because I remember things, Mom. The first time you showed me, I remembered, and you said that I started school on the 14th.
If you're going to talk on camera, you need to come on camera, because otherwise...
Mom, check your
Get over
phone
here.
and see, please.
Get over here. Get over here.
No, because it's not.
See? She's so happy.
It's the 13th.
It's the 13th.
And tomorrow.
The main things I've gone is for Floyd and Nova. They both start on the 15th. For Nova, it's pretty flexible because it's the first week. Everybody's getting registered, etc. Hello, my handsome
Please
son.
check your email.
I will, but guess what? I'm doing my show right now, and I'm reading a story.
Well, when you get done with your story,
Yes.
please check it.
Yes, I will. I promise. Pinky promise.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Boy, can read the story?
I can sit here and watch, but yeah. Can we check the calendar just really quick for school?
Dude, you start this day. Today is this day. Tomorrow is this day. No, I don't have to because you and Nova are right here.
On different days.
You and Nova are on the 15th. Lily, you're either on that day or after because you're a younger age. So
No.
the older people go on this day and you'll be one of these days. Pretty sure you'll be the 16th. They're the 15th. Well, like I said, I'll check on break, so please don't stress.
It's alright. Okay. And I just and I told you, Lil, if school starts before, I already said I would love you. Yeah, I know that.
You guys are right across the street from each other. It's pretty cool. Okay, just reading really quick. Archaeological evidence that the current outbreaks are not the first to wreak havoc on the tropical islands. And past, as humans cleared brush, plowed fields, and pressed deeper into the forests, they stripped up viruses left over from an earlier primeval era. These supplements mysteriously disappeared along with their populations. One possible reason, repeated epidemics of one or more killer diseases. The first outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus was not reported until 1977, although it was spread rapidly, especially in Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Kenya, Zaire, Sudan, Gabon, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, Liberia, Cameroon, and the Central African Republic. The mode of infection remains unknown. Some virologists suspect certain species of monkeys and apes may harbor the virus. Okay, so they said the same thing with the AIDS virus. I don't believe you. Oh, it's saying my camera was unplugged. What? What in the what? That's not true. Let me just click on this. Okay, it's there. What the crack? Why would it say that? Anyways. Okay, so the first outbreak of the deadly Ebola virus was not reported until 1977. Although it has spread rapidly, we already named these places, the mode of infection remains unknown. Virologists suspect certain species of monkeys and apes may harbor the virus and pass it along to humans who eat or come in contact with the creatures. Okay, so that's where I left off. A lot of people say AIDS started with monkeys. I don't think so. I feel like it was a human sort of thing.
I think so.
I know, me too.
Just
Isn't okay, so out there it's nice and cool, and here it's very hot and muggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I thought it was just me because I'd go out there and be like, oh, wow, this is nice. But right now I'm just like wiping the sweat off of me. But yeah, they try to say the AIDS virus came from monkeys. Actually, I believe that was another government-born illness, and they know the cure for it. They've had it for years. They took advantage of that forever, got lots of money. Now they came out with the whole stringent for it, but still, they're making tons of money. What?
There's a fan that you can buy, and it's like a spray bottle fan. So you put water.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. Others theorize that deadly germs are unleashed when saugings disrupt the forest floor or bring down the canopies of huge, disease-laden trees where ancient death-dealing viruses might be nesting. Emerging killers such as AIDS surfacing from ecologically damaged parts of the earth appear to be a natural consequence of the ruin of the biosphere, Preston pointed out. Many of them come from the tattered edges of tropical rainforest, or they come from tropical savanna that is being settled rapidly by people, he speculates. The tropical rainforests are the deep reservoirs of life on the planet, containing most of the world's plant and animal species. But, he adds, the rainforests are also the largest reservoirs of viruses, some of them millions of years old, around since the dawn of time. And when viruses come out of the ecosystem, they tend to spread in waves through the human population like echoes from the dying biospheres. In recent years, researchers have discovered dozens of previously unknown viruses, including Lassa, Arapush, Roshio, Guanarito, monkeypox, dengue, and chikungunya. Among newly found hantaviruses are Machu Picchu and Juman. Okay, so here in the Four Corners area, my uncle was a nurse for that, and yeah, he was key for the plague and the hantavirus, and come to find out, prairie dogs carry the plague. Hold on 1 second. Where's my camera? Camera 1, camera 2. Okay, looks good. So, prairie dogs carry the plague. And as far as hantavirus go, that's field mice. And he was key in the studies, like he's named in the studies for these things. It's pretty intense. So I'm pretty sure we can, oh my gosh, that's kind of, we can get through this before we go to the next break. Base on Mars. When Professor Tom Van Flandern gazes up into the night sky, he sees the cosmic remains of ancient empires long dead, and dust of civilizations that flowered and died countless eons before humans walked the earth. According to this Oxford-trained astronomer, the closest visible reminders of vanished celestial kingdoms can be seen on one of Earth's closest members, the planet Mars. When we look closely, we can see the ruins of an ancient race of people who flourished millions of years ago, Dr. Van Flandern said. The evidence, he adds, can be seen in a series of controversial topographical formations on the red planet's surface, first photographed in 1976 by a Viking orbiter. At first glance, many of these formations appear to be artificial. Some even resemble ancient Egyptian pyramids. The most striking formation, however, is located in the Sindonian region and bears an uncanny resemblance to a human face looking outward into space. This so-called face on Mars has been the subject of intense scrutiny since computer-enhanced images of the photograph were studied by NASA officials in the 1980s. Some scientists, including Dr. Van Fandren, are convinced that the base was built millions of years ago by extinct race that colonized Mars after their own planet was destroyed in an asteroid collision. Dr. Van Flandern believes that the main asteroid belt in the solar system is probably the shattered remains of two planets that collided and exploded between 65 million and 250 million years ago. And I was just watching a video like that last night, as far as there's this planet, I want to say called Theia, but it's Theia. So Theia, it was the planet that collided with us. Oh, it's okay, don't worry. And there's remnants left over as far as like clumps of things near our Earth's mantle. Could be the reason why, if you look at the planet and its life form as far as, come on, get out there. Oh my gosh. The bleeding must not stop that cup. Anyways, so if you look at the planet without the water on it, it's like very catawampus looking. It's like bloop bloop on this side and kind of bloop bloop over here. Very strangely shaped. The rest of it is water. What is it, like 97 or 98% water? Anyways, intelligent life on at least one of those planets evacuated before the collision and launched colonization probes on Mars, Earth, and perhaps elsewhere in the solar system. So I don't know, as far as like different things that I've looked at and theorized as far as history, and I'm saying theorize. I'm not saying this is true. In theory, could we actually be Martians? Are we actually aliens on this human planet? Or the planet we know as Earth? What do you think? She doesn't know. But to me, it's like this planet started with mononuclear sort of precipices, like these little tiny things. I want to say people, but they're things growing and growing and growing, like, and then we came. We're an alien race. Like, we don't naturally belong to this Earth. And yes, there's fish that are starting to walk on the planet. They've done that before. Who knows? I don't know. It's pretty creepy. This Earth is pretty intense, and we only know 20% of the ocean. 20% of the ocean. Our planet is made up of mostly ocean. What's down there? What do you think? Megalodon? Anything. Well, I believe the same. Anything's possible.
Everybody says there's more ocean than land, but there's land under the water.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but we don't count it because we can't see it and walk on it. So it's considered part of the water world. Mm-hmm. So intelligent life on at least one of those planets evacuated before the collision and launched colonization probes on Mars, Earth, and perhaps elsewhere in the solar system. Alan F. Alford, author of 2 best-selling books on the subject, The Phoenix Solution and Gods of the New Millennium, agrees with Dr. Van Flandern. The ancient Egyptians and their predecessors had a profound scientific knowledge of the exploded planets, including the causes of these explosions and subsequent effects on the evolution of life on Earth. Alfred writes, Alfred, who lives in England, said NASA has tried to cover up the truth about the face on Mars by distorting the photos taken by the Mars Global Survey spacecraft in April 1999, and I believe that.
Did you know that a rover, they sent it to Mars, and it ran out of power because it was on the other side of Mars.
Oh, the dark side?
Yeah. So they sent another one up there 4 years later, and one of the pictures that it took was of the other one.
Oh, it's like, there it is! And then it's fine. Did it die too?
No.
Okay. Well, that's good. So what happened after that? Did it save it? Or...
I don't really know.
Yeah, okay.
Don't really remember.
So, the reimagining of the so-called Face on Mars by NASA's Mars Global Surveyor spacecraft in April 1998 was done little to dampen to the vigorous debate on its possible artificial manufacture by an unknown extraterrestrial race, Alfred said. Officials at NASA insist that the face is really nothing more than a natural rock formation, an opinion shared by most astronomers and geologists who have studied the pictures. We humans have an infinite ability to see deliberate images where none exists, commented one NASA official. Why else do so many people every year see Jesus on the Virgin Mary in tortillas, wall stains, or clouds? I've actually seen pictures of Jesus on toast. That's some holy toast. It's kind of like the Holy Ghost, but it's holy toast.
There is this thing, and they just discovered it. Someone fell on a rock, and it made it to where they could print their shadow on a wall.
Oh.
So,
well, I know that happened in Japan where the atomic bomb went off, and there was a girl playing jump rope, and as she's jumping up and the jump rope's going down, there's an imprint of that on the wall because the blast was like, and she's like jumping a rope. Could be Cinderella, just dressed in yellow, whatever. And she's like jumping. Who knows what the Japanese version of that is? And she's up in the air. The rope is down here, and it's like on the wall. You see an impression of her and the jump rope and the hands of the other kids. There's been so many imprints like that. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Have you seen that too? Yeah. What do you think? Pretty scary?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Russia these days is threatening to nuke us.
I know.
Yeah. What do you think about that? Or you said and. What were you going to say, and?
Imagine you're just walking and you see that your shadow's imprinting on the wall.
Mm-hmm. I can see it now. So just imagine that.
Yeah.
Why else do so many people every year see Jesus or the Virgin Mary in tortillas, wall stains, or clouds? Referring to the new image, Chief Scientist Arden L. Albee of the California Institute of Technology was quoted in the Washington Post as saying, "Anyone who has flown in an airplane will recognize that this face is natural. It's a butte, a mesa, a knob," added Michael Ravine, Advanced Projects Manager at Madeline Space Science Systems in San Diego, which operated Survey's cameras. "Nothing jumps out at me and screams, 'This must have been built by the forces of intelligence.'" Analyst Tom Van Flandern, and I don't even know how you're wearing this hot-ass winter pajama. And you're making me feel hot because...
My furry head.
Oh my gosh, look at... Isn't your furry head sweating? My poor little Lily. You're in these long jammies, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. "Anyone who has flown an airplane will recognize that this face is natural. It's a butte, a mesa, a knob," added Michael Ravine, Advanced Projects Manager at Madeline Space Science Systems in San Diego, which operated Surveyor's camera. Nothing jumps out at me and screams, "This must have been built by the forces of intelligence." Analyst Tom Van Flandern insists that the face is artificial, built millions of years ago by unknown space colonizers from a doomed world. So he says it's artificial, but it must have been built by past generations. How is it artificial and built by past civilizations? I think he's saying something and retracting on himself. Analyst Tom Van Flandern insists the face is artificial, built millions of years ago by unknown space colonizers from a doomed world. The humanoid facial features that first drew attention to this area are confirmed by this new photo despite poor lighting and poor viewing angle, Dr. Flandern said. One feature of headdress is so much a symmetrical combination of right-angle linear and round features as to suggest artificiality strongly. After its discovery in 1976, NASA observers quietly filmed and filed away pictures of the face on Mars, along with hundreds taken on the mission. 2 shots from the Viking orbiter identified as frames 35872 and 70813 show the face, partly in shadow, which has the effects of strengthening human features, which shadows do. You have that brilliant light, which is like at 4 or 5 or whatever p.m., and it's like known as the best light. And then you have shadows. What time of day is it? Shadows are going to show up. The face is roughly 2,500 meters long, about 1.5 miles, 2,000 meters wide, 1.2 miles, and 400 meters at its highest point, about 1/5 of a mile. Several pyramid-like objects purportedly surround the base, objects that some researchers think might constitute a city square, complete with 4 small mounds, a large main pyramid, and a fortress just east of the main pyramid. The exact purpose of the face and other suspected artifacts in artificial monuments on the Martian landscape remains unclear. I suspect, said Alfred, that future probes to the red planet, followed up by careful and open-minded study, will answer that and, countless other questions. Some die-hard supporters of the face on Mars theory insist it will probably take a manned mission to the red planet before the debate is finally settled. Well, Lily, delicious book. Thank you for joining me for story time. You've been very good. Very good. Well, we do have to go to our second music break. So on this break, we have Miss Mia Savage with her band, Antidote for Savages. And she is going to be singing Bury Me in Heaven, which is one of my favorite songs. Not a Phase, Singing to Your Grave, and the bottom line. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break. Did you have a good sandwich?
Yes.
Oh, that's okay. Did you put it back in the fridge? No, mine will have to stay in. But, get some cherry Pepsi. Is it good? Cherry Coke and cherry Pepsi are very different. Cherry Coke has a more, stringent, kind of stings your mouth sort of taste, and Pepsi's just which one do you like best? think I like cherry Coke because the carbonation seems more within the cherry Pepsi, but I've enjoyed both of these.
Glad you're in time. Glad you're in time.
Dude, we're supposed to go tomorrow for an open house, and then Tuesday you go to school. What do I need to watch or see? You get up early in the morning of Tuesday, and get your clothes on, get everything packed, and make your way to the bus. Get on the bus and travel to said school, where your brother gets dropped off here, and you get dropped off up there. Try to understand what the question is, because we covered all this.
You sent the emails. I'm not completely sure if that's the truth.
That's true. But
check it. Double check it.
I will.
I want to be here when you do it.
Hit me up in an hour.
Do it right now. So you can check it and forget.
It said Tuesday. So Monday, you go for open house. Go and meet your teacher, Miss B, because kids your age generally can't pronounce her name. So instead of saying Miss Miss or whatever her name is,
Miss Body.
I'm Miss B. So, what's up, Miss B? I'm Lily P.
It must feel so good when we come in here to make the door open so fast.
Yeah, must, huh? Yeah. Swish, swish, fish. Another one in the basket. Can you touch this? Another one in the casket. So, yeah. Lizzie, what did you say? It's a Saturday boogaloo, Lily boogaloo.
Mom,
What?
someone snuck onto the principal, and in messages, they found a message from Subway that said, "Good night, Miss Bisselbottom."
Miss Bishop Bottom, Disher Bottom. Okay, so we already saw that. I was like, can you possibly help me out with school supplies? And she was like, go fuck yourself. I haven't started teaching yet, so I'm not doing nothing. Right, well, I didn't bring supplies then. Open house Monday, August 14th from 4 to 6. This is a great opportunity for you to find where your class is and meet your teacher, Miss B. Which is what I said.
Miss Bisselbottom.
Okay, Bisonnet. Let me see.
Bisonnet.
Bisonnet. Bisonnet. Miss Bisonnet. And you should be like, she knows my name. Instead of being like, what's up, Miss B? Could do either one. I'd be like, what's up, Miss B? Be like, Miss Bisonnet. Can you help me here with this mouth thing happening? It'd be great. You're creeping me out. Get out of here, creeper. Love me too. Get out with your sweaty ass pajamas. Then it's love is not a thing. Oh, love is not a thing. It's not a thing.
be with me too. Wanna rock to life, just a hollow victory. Lock my head tonight, they start with love and sleep. Waiting to let this collapse on me, yeah. So I'll be talking to your family. I'll be saying to your family. I'll be waiting, don't let this collapse on me, yeah. I'll be talking to your family. I'll be saying to your family. Are you giving up? It's just another game you play. Have you had enough of all the silly things I say? Take it a bit long, but I'll be here for you. Find another one, they'll never feel like I do. So I'll be waiting, don't let this collapse on me, yeah. I'll be talking to your family. I'll be singing to your family. I'll be waiting, don't let this collapse on me, yeah. I'll be talking to your family. I'll be saying to your family. I'll be talking to your family. I'll be singing to your family. I'll be waiting to let this collapse on me, yeah. I'll be talking to your family. I'll be singing to your family. behavior. Didn't mean what I said. Bottom line is without you, I'm torn and tired. Control my I'm torn and tired. Destruction. I'm torn and tired. Control I'm torn and tired. Control my I'm torn and tired. I'm torn and tired. Control I'm torn and
It's a lie. Well, we'll kill the big guys trying to tell us that they want the demons running around. But it doesn't matter, because it's just a lie, and we can change it anytime we want. It's all we need a choice. No record, no work, no job, no savings, or nothing. Just a choice right now between fear and love.
I'm torn and tired. Control
Yo, Adrian!
Just a choice right now between fear and love.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. This camera is a little low. I just changed it, but it's not showing. So let's see. So we did a story time with me, TessaTNT, during the first 2 hours. Now we're going to do some creepy ass videos. And the videos I have to share with you are from one of my favorite podcasters, Joe Rogan. I don't know, Travis. Am I going to scare you tonight? No, I did see some UFOs last night. That was pretty awesome. Hey, you, Adrian. But yeah, they were so far away. So in the past, at the fairgrounds, we've seen motherships. And these are huge extraterrestrial spacecraft. That to me was amazing. But seriously, this year I just saw a little tiny guy, and we're looking up and we're seeing all these meteorites flying everywhere, and it's pretty epic as far as like heavenly space. It's so beautiful. It was so clear. I'm saying, let's see. Friday night, it got a little cloudy. It rained. Saturday night, it was clearer. Every night before that was very clear. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to scare you. Okay, so I also have to say, Travis, if you want to talk about scary shits, me and my daughter, night 1, we're just fine. Fine. Nothing going on, but night 2, I think they get comfortable with us, and so they start like popping up all around us. So we're both like seeing out of our peripherals a man standing there or somebody like moving around, and then you look and you see it for a second, then it's gone. That's how it generally goes at the fairgrounds. I even had one like bam, like hit into the side of my car. And I'm like, okay, that's Vern. Vern's here. He's fucking with me, whatever. It wasn't Vern. It was the shadow guy. But yes, let me present this to you. I'm going to share slides, video file. Nope, that's not it. So let me close that. But yes, it was very good fair year. Last night, I was super surprised because generally on Saturdays, the kids, get this thing within them where they're just like, we have to go in, we got to fuck with the security, we got to fuck with the animals, whatnot. And it was so quiet last night. It was eerily quiet. It was so weird because generally there's teenagers. Like generally I have a laser and I'm playing like laser tag with them and stuff. And there was a dance. It was super busy. I went up there. I had to withdraw 2 troops from there, bring them down to the barn because I'm just like, this is covered here. Let's go down here. And it was super busy up there. I was just expecting some stuff to go off. And we were taught by maintenance, go over to this box. You can press off and on. It was on, pressed off on both of them. The lights were still on. So there was like some sort of background light happening. Let's see. Share screen. Share screen. Come on, beast one. Okay, so not sure if you know, but Joe Rogan, I'm a super fan of his, and this is the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan history. And these are pretty good. There was ghost stories and alien theories, and I decided to go with this instead of the other just because it matched the time frame better, and this stuff is really happening right now. So
these are the craziest alien theories in Joe Rogan Experience history. As always, if you guys enjoy, please be sure to subscribe with post notifications on.
If aliens are real, I'm not 100% convinced, but I'm probably like 90% convinced. But if they are real, I leave in the room for bullshit. It's like, Jamie, get a picture of your shirt.
If they're
Show
real.
everybody the shirt you're wearing while we're talking about that. It's a UFO. It says, can they see it? Believe that. That's a dope shirt. Exactly.
That's a saucer, if I've ever seen one.
I think if they're here, they're not gonna let us. That's what I think.
Well, that's what.
I think they're gonna swoop in and go, hey.
Well, that's
Fuck.
I'm 25, right? I can't speak on anything, but just looking
So
from
tell me-
past experience, and there's drawings, like
Right.
even in the Mona Lisa, there's a weird thing or whatever in the
Yeah, it's like a
background
flying
and shit.
saucer.
But there's a spike. It's a spike in because it's getting pretty weird here.
The spike, they think it's hard to tell because sometimes when people talk about UFOs, a bunch of other people hallucinate or lie. Like there's a lot of that.
Right.
So every time there's a real legit UFO,
Right.
you get a bunch of nut cases who just want to tell crazy shit
Right.
about being taken
And I
aboard
seen one.
spaceships.
I mean,
you've seen
I
a
never.
UFO?
Yeah.
What'd you
I-
say? What'd it look like?
I was probably 16. I was in upstate New York, and it would just stay there. So let me precursor this. My aunt and uncle were very strict, and we had to go to bed at a very strict deadline, probably 10 p.m. And I was looking out the window with my cousin, and it's just a light that just stays there and then just fucking goes off. I mean, you can't explain it.
Well, if you're 17,
16,
16, how
probably
how strong is this memory when you're like looking at it when you're trying to remember it?
medium.
Medium.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I
for
mean, there's
sure-
something there
For sure, something took off and did something that didn't make sense to you.
for sure.
Mm.
And then in Utah, I mean, there's shit happens all the time. Even here in LA, I can't tell you how many times, because I used to live in Tarzana. So there was like a balcony here, and it looked kind of like, it sounds corny, but like a classic like force field. Whenever you think of a force field, and it just kind of goes like this, and it's kind of like a dome
Mm-hmm.
in a circular shape,
Mm-hmm.
and it just goes like this and goes back
Whoa.
in Tarzana, looking down at the fucking city. And I'm like, how did no one else see this?
They
No,
might
but
have.
you
But
do.
I was there with like fucking 4 other people, and they saw it too.
The thing about event
Unique.
sure hard, but if aliens visiting us, like how often are they doing it? Like
All
unique
the
events
time.
would probably be what it would be.
Right.
It'd be like occasionally,
Right.
once every 6 months, someone sees one
Yeah.
somewhere. But they're here all the time. They probably just know how to evade detection.
I'm telling you, all the time.
If something can travel
Right?
here from another planet, it's
All
going
the
to be able
time.
to know
Yeah.
when they're being watched and when they're not being watched. That's
But
not
that's-
going to be hard.
That's why you gotta wonder if it's like intentional.
I think there's enough talk about it now that we're probably going to find out what it is in our lifetime. I never would think that before. I think the government withheld information for whatever reason. Maybe they
Yeah.
think people are scared. Maybe they think it's a threat to the national security, to have a bunch of people worried that
Turkeys
aliens are
with their
flying
heads cut
around
off.
us all
They
the
don't
time.
know what
There's
to
nothing we
do.
can do about it. Maybe they like had a conversation and they thought maybe it'd be better to keep people in the quiet or keep them in the dark so that they don't freak out, because there's nothing we could do about it anyway. If we just tell them that there's aliens that are visiting us all the time, they're going to pay attention to taxes and mortgage rates and the stock market.
You know,
They're going
they
to be
care
like,
about
holy fuck.
uranium and
There's
shit
aliens.
like that.
They're around us all the time.
Yeah.
People are going to freak out. So I think like little drops of like this, the recent one they said, where they
Yeah, what did the Pentagon just say?
Yeah,
Literally like
they
2
said
fucking days ago.
they've recovered crafts that are not from this world, not made on Earth.
Not made on Earth.
Yeah, not made on Earth.
Yeah.
They're basically saying we don't know what the fuck it is, but we didn't make it. That's bananas. And I think that's going to lead to more and more
BANANAS.
information coming out about it, where we're going to try to get a sense of understanding. Like, how long have they known this? You know, how much of like
We've
all that
seen it.
Roswell, New Mexico shit was
Right.
true? Like, tell
Right.
us what was going on.
And backtracking, you got to wonder if like, oh, we've been hiding this the whole time,
Yeah.
or this is the first time for real that we don't know.
This is what I like to think. I like to think that the people that are in charge at the Pentagon are patriots, and they realize it's probably better, especially when you're dealing with the United States. It's in this kind of turmoil that they're in right now. It's crazy between racial turmoil and turmoil with the police and turmoil with people protesting in cities and blocking traffic. There's so much crazy turmoil. They'd be like, no one's even going to notice now. Just let it sit now. Just say, yeah, we got UFOs. Everything is so
UFOs,
crazy.
we got
The news cycle of
aliens.
any crazy story
Right.
like this is only a few days, and then people forget.
Well, or it's just people already know, and it's just normalization. And you think about movies
backing up
as
what
just
we know.
normalizing you to the idea that I can't even like the Canadian. I don't quote me on this, but a
Ooh,
Canadian,
those movies.
someone in office was like, "There's like 7 species of aliens in the U.S. government."
There's like
That'd be crazy.
770.
That's-
Come on.
You know, Tommy Lee Jones and Will
Do
Smith
y'all
were
remember
right
that?
all along.
Yeah, check that out. Please
Mm.
fact check that for
Is
me.
he a loony person though?
I have no idea.
See, people can get elected and still be crazy. That's a problem.
For certain.
That's a
You
problem.
have to be crazy to
just
get
because,
elected.
like when you hear about someone having like a really high profile job and they say something crazy, it doesn't mean they're not crazy. Just because they're the prime minister of some
Right.
fucking country, they could be out of their mind.
What do we got?
I'm telling you
Something
what.
close to that. How close?
You have
Where
to
is
be
it?
crazy to
Former
be in
defense
office.
minister claims that aliens are real. Apparently, there's a humanoid-esque race of aliens called the Tall Whites living among us. It's Adam Curry.
What publication is
Adam
this?
Curry.
Is this Vice?
Adam
There's on
Curry's
Vice,
alien.
there's a few other places.
Well,
There's a few.
he
So
did-
it's like a real deal.
Definitely said it. It seems like.
Come on.
That's crazy shit.
Yeah, that is crazy shit. The thing is that guy nuts? Like, what else does he believe in? You know, how does he feel about ghosts? Right? When you think about like an alien sighting, like if you saw an alien and then you never saw one again for the rest of your life,
Right.
it would fuck with your memory, even if the alien was real. If a saucer
Right.
emerged in front of you and then took off, it's the same thing with a ghost.
It's called the Wilson Memo. You can look it up. Al Wilson met with a scientist who's actually was featured in one of my films. Everybody has been debating whether or not this document of a conversation with an sitting admiral at the time is a real document. It's an actual conversation that happened, and this document is real. Everybody wants to know. The world is going crazy right now in the UFO world. I'll tell you straight up right now, I'm in the position to know, and it is a real document that is real. So the conversation you read in that conversation was had. I can't attest to every.
You're not being very clear.
Sure.
Please.
No problem.
Please click
There was a
something.
document that is circulating right now. It's really big. It's going around everywhere. People are asking and
What is
wondering.
this document?
It's called the Wilson Memo. Is how you can find it online. Or the Wilson Leak.
There it is. Jimmy's got it. The Wilson Memorandum.
Admiral Wilson meets with this scientist, and they have this discussion. Oddly enough, at special projects at EG&G. And if I remember, the document is from 2001. I'm telling everybody right now, it's real, and we'll see. My history is pretty good with like saying if something is real or not, right? So here we go. The document comes out. They meet at EG&G Special Projects.
Mhm.
In 1989, they stumble into a problem. This happens. They put the technology away, and then they bring it back out and see if material science has caught up and if they can make any progress. So this document kind of talks about this process. The big thing I get from it, and a lot of it's vindicating to Bob, and one of the things it's vindicating besides the EG&G thing, is that private industry, so this guy's an admiral, and he says, I found out about your SAP, your Special Access Program. I need to know about it. And he's going to a private part of industry, and he is denied access. And he says, I should be running this program. And they were able to deny him access. So I think the takeaway here is check it out. I'm telling you that is an actual correct, that is a leak. Now, everything said in that document, I don't know.
What are you talking about? What is said in that document specifically?
It's between a scientist and an admiral that are sitting, and they're having a meeting, and they're talking about the search for the UFO subject, the search to get special access program access to all of these different things like reverse engineering programs. So in this document, they talk about it. I believe that this document, the person that went was employed by Robert Bigelow, one of the guys that has a couple orbiting satellites and all that stuff.
He's the guy who owns Skinwalker Ranch.
No, he's not. He was the guy that owned Skinwalker.
Okay.
Yeah, he used to own it. There's a new owner, and I interviewed him for my other film, but there's a new owner, and you'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. But there's stuff that you'll be hearing about Skinwalker Ranch soon. New owner. Anyway, the whole point of this insertion here is just that document kind of validates a lot of this idea Bob just said, that they make a little progress, then they can't go anywhere. They tuck it away, and then they bring it back out, 10 years later and start working on it. What is the limiting factor? I think Bob should speak on this, but it's the material science.
It's really where physics is. I can see them doing that. I mean, I didn't have any information on that, but I think what George uncovered is probably accurate. We try and do what we can. And once we reach a roadblock going, we really can't figure it out, it's just friggin' wait, put the thing away, wait for science to catch up. And, a decade later, let's take the project out again and see, all right, now where can we go?
But there's got to be someone who remains informed, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you've got your scientists like you and Barry. You got your people that you compartmentalize. You got these people working on
Yeah, there has to be some people
right.
that know everything.
You've got security.
They know.
And then someone's going to be on the outside. saying, "Hey, we need people
Like
to guard this
Bob Lazar.
building. Don't let anybody
It's through
in."
windows.
I think a lot of that is private industry, and I think that's how they
Really?
keep it. Yeah, I think that's how they because the government is just so leaky. I think that's kind of what they're doing.
That's what the document kind of proves. You just articulated that it is in control of private industry.
What private industry? Some aerospace company?
No,
Something?
I don't know.
Yeah, the admiral wouldn't
Illuminati?
name it in the
What?
car
Right.
in the conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Who is it?
So they still have these things supposedly.
I would guess. I mean, I don't have any information on
Have
that
you
at all.
ever asked anyone that has any inkling of an idea of where they got them, how they got them?
No, but something must have been said to me from Barry, but I it was just too long ago, and I can't quite remember what was said, but it just left a seed in my mind. I think at least one of them was part of an archaeological dig, so it's old. At least one of them is
Ancient.
old. I don't know if it was the one I worked on, but I remember something to do with an archaeological dig.
Whoa.
So that means it's not just old; it's ancient.
So we're following and pleading with him all the way out there. Please, just tell us. Please, I swear on my life, this happened. He gets in the car, doors open. He looks up, and the only reason why I'm telling you this because he died. He looks up at Marco and I, and he goes, "It happened." Closed the door, and off he went. Now, the reason why I share that is because that's not something that I can put any weight on for the documentary for people like you, right? But as a personal message for me, knowing that level of validation on the inside, it kept us going. It was like, okay, why on earth would he have done that? Why on earth would he say? And that kept Marco and I going. And that was a personal level of validation. That
is there any conventional explanation why the military shut everything down? Why they had military barricades?
Military, conventional.
No, they did try to say that the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities. But I've seen the guy Modine or something like that. But you talk to the witnesses.
But why would the military shut the town down because of a guy with deformities?
And then for the doctors in the hospital, they said, oh, there was like a midget having a baby or something weird, just something that was just so ridiculous. It was like, and you talk to the witnesses, and they're just like, oh, come on, I'm not even gonna, that's laughable at best.
Shame.
I mean, these girls came within 8 to 10 feet. Three women, Katya, two sisters, Liliani and Valkyria, 14, 16, and 21. They got within 8 to 10 feet in broad daylight of this creature. And one of the things that doesn't come across in the film, when they saw this thing, they're looking like, what are we looking at here? They're walking through this field, and it's up against a cinder block wall. And one of them was looking at it, what is that? And it was crouched by the wall. It was weak and feeble. And one of them kind of like screeched.
Yeah,
Like, what is that? And
They're
it
used to it.
right at the girls.
Please
Locked
help
eyes on
me.
them. Liliana grabs her
me.
younger daughter, her younger sister, who's 14, Valkyria, and hightails it out of there. Katya is 21. She's frozen in her tracks, locked eyes with this creature, and it's communicating with her. Please help me. He wants help. It's weak and it's feeble, and it's scared.
It's hurt.
And it's crouched down. Liliani realizes that Katya is back there. She gets, 100 feet down the path. She leaves her sister, stay here. I'm going back to get Katya. She runs back. And I asked Katya, and I asked all the girls, during that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, but during that moment of contact,
you don't have to speak.
Like, put me there. That's where the title comes from, moment of contact, because that was when they locked eyes on this creature. And that's when Katya said, help me, I'm scared. And it was feeble and suffering. And it's a very powerful moment. And these girls have been saying the same thing. The mother. It's the first time I'd ever reported on these so-called men in dark suits that show up and intimidate witnesses. Honestly, I've been hearing about those cases for so many times, but I've avoided them because it's got so much baggage from men in black. It's just ridiculous. I just didn't even want to be associated with it. But I'd heard it. I can go on. I'm blue in the face until tomorrow morning with the amount of cases with generals too. But this time, when the mother said that these men showed up and tried to get the daughters to say they were lying and offered her a briefcase full of $100 bills and they could relocate.
They're going to do it.
I don't know. For some reason, I said, okay, for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to report on these guys. And I did. And it's in the movie. You can hear the mother talking about it, and she's so emotional. And the mother came back to the location where it happened. The smell,
a lot of turmoil.
And the footprint.
Oh my God, it's worse than the skunk.
Everybody talks about that stench. That it was so. They said, if you ever take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000, that would give you some indication of the level of like how putrid and nasty. And it stayed in the areas, like at the hospitals when they did the x-rays, and everybody talks about it. That stench there, it's unbelievable. Like it fills your navel cavities and doesn't leave for a week. It was incredible. And then they all said the same thing.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, they sanitized the hospital. The guy said that he had to close off that wing of the hospital while they were sanitizing it because it was so intense. So
how long did it last for?
I heard days and weeks is what I heard from people. And even the mother said when she went to where the creature was, she said that the stench, even there after the creature was gone, got in her nasal cavities, and she tried to flush it out with water and saline or whatever.
She couldn't get rid of it.
And she just couldn't get it out of her nasal cavities. Really crazy. But they all did. I mean, everybody talked about that stench. You know, I mean, the military officer, the guy that drove
so prominent
around, I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, but I did. And I'm looking this guy in the eyes. I'm thinking, I could be looking at a guy that drove you have no idea, dude. You have no idea.
How did he describe it?
So when I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got great, smoothies and coffee. And I'm just like, I think an alien spaceship crashed and they recovered a live alien. And we made contact and the Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about. So I told a couple people on the last trip I came back. I was I was so rocked. I couldn't reintegrate back into the culture. I was just like, fuck, I think this happened. It's the biggest story ever. So people were asking me, even my neighbor who runs that Make-A-Wish Foundation. He was like, James, he goes, bro, I like you a lot and I got a lot of respect for you, but you lost me on this one. And I was like, I don't blame you, bro. I really don't. But listen to the witnesses.
Unreal.
Just, that's all I say. And I would tell people, and I realized I can't talk about it. All I can say is just listen to the witnesses. Don't take it from me. But I'm looking at that guy in the eyes, Joe. And I've been at this for 30 years. I'm working on my 7th film right now. I'm looking this guy in the eyes and I'm like, this guy probably going to trip me out so hard. And it was like,
every time he whispers, it trips me out.
Just like a week earlier, he was like, oh, I don't care all the money in the world. I'm never coming forward. The risks are too high.
How did it really
Seriously?
Because you're
not worth
the secret.
all the money in the world.
You're being told not to ever talk about this. And you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And they call you, the military calls you periodically. They want to know where you are. And he's got this secret inside him that he can't tell the rest of the world. And he's thinking about all the different, everyone's out there speculating, is it real? Is it fake? Is it real? Is it fake? And this guy drove a body
What
around.
do you think?
Just think about that for a second.
That stinky ass
Think about the
body.
doctor who took
Infiltrating his nostrils.
Marco Leal. Thank you, Marco. You're the man. Marco Leal found him 8 years ago. And he was like, he confirmed the story. He was still working at regional hospital. He goes, come forward. Marco kept going every year back and forth. Then he retired. And 4 years after he retired, he agreed to meet with us. He wasn't even sure he was going to go on. And I said, look, man, we'll film you from the back. We'll disguise your voice. Showed us photographs of him at the hospital. We know we've been trying to get at him. Excuse me. At the end of the interview, thank you. I feel so much better. I've been shouldering that burden for 26 years, and I've so desperately wanted to share that story with the rest of the world.
But they're basically saying, think about the movie Abyss, where the aliens lived underwater.
I love that movie.
What's going on?
Yeah,
there's some sort of alien base underwater, or some meeting place, or that's where they hide. That's where they go to be undetected.
Do you think you're going to see it in your lifetime? Bigfoot or aliens? Like, where it's like, like we have to talk to them now. We have to interact with them. There's
a video that is impossible to ignore. There's some things that are impossible to ignore. And then there's eyewitness testimonies of people who are rock solid, totally dependable, like fighter pilots, who have seen some things. Like the best examples, this guy, Commander David Fravor, who was off the coast of San Diego in 2004. And this is corroborated by multiple points of data. They had this tracking system that tracks things above Earth's atmosphere, and they found this thing went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. They have no idea how it's doing this. They have no idea. There's no method of propulsion that's visible. They followed this thing. They locked onto it. It blocked their radar. It blocked their tracking systems, rather. And then it jetted off at an impossible rate of speed. Seriously. And then the Nimitz relocated this thing at their cat point. The cat point is where the fighter pilots, when they're doing this anti-gravity exercise, they were supposed to meet at this very specific point. And that's where this thing had gone. Like, this thing had read their manifest and knew, or read their plans and knew where they were going.
What's wild?
That is way more compelling to me than Bigfoot. The Bigfoot thing is just fun, but the alien thing is fun and likely. There's something going on. And so I go back and forth. Sometimes I think maybe it's some sort of government drone that's like so sophisticated, and it's totally top secret. And if we ever go to war with China, that's when they're going to break it out. And then sometimes I think what they are is something that's monitoring us and making sure we don't blow ourselves up, making sure that we make this journey from territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons into some sort of an advanced intergalactic society, and that there's a very crucial moment where the instincts of these tribal people, which is all of us, all human beings, these tribal territorial people, where you have to keep them from sabotaging any possible future progress by blowing themselves up, by killing each other, by
what if we talk to them and then then when you say that, they go, yeah, that was it. Is that easy? Like, not that easy, but like, you just go, is that it? You go, yeah, that's about it.
We're trying to keep you guys from blowing yourselves up. This is like, but maybe that's like the natural thing that you see. Like when civilizations advance, like there's a very precarious moment where like they have the capability of blowing themselves up, but the reason
the aliens are shutting it down.
They still have those instincts. They have to bypass that. They have to figure out. And so that's when aliens start circling and just keeping an eye on us.
Dude, they shut down.
That's the primary.
That's what you would hope, right? Instead of like them attacking us.
Yes.
They shut down the nuclear reactors.
They were like, if they really could do all those things, they could probably take out our power grid pretty easy. Apparently,
they won't take down the power grid because that's not good for us.
Nuclear launches and nuclear launches, they will do that, and they hover over military bases, and that they'll just shut everything down.
They'll shut it down naturally. Yeah, we have control. We're going to take control of it.
So crazy.
I was doing my first documentary back in 1997 when I was just naive enough to think I can get an interview with Steven Spielberg. We had a mutual friend involved, this woman, Janet, and she gets back to me and she's like, yeah,
Miss Jackson,
Spielberg's definitely not going to meet with you, but he knows you're working on this UFO documentary. He thinks you should look into this landing case that happened in Africa at the school. And I said to myself at the time, remind you guys that I was making a film on UFOs, and I dismissed it so quickly because I thought there's no way that a mass landing with the sheer volume of eyewitness testimony at school in broad daylight could happen and the whole world not know about it. So I just walked away from that story for about 10 years. 10 years later,
you lost it out, dude.
National Press Club with Leslie King.
No, you could have gone big
part of
with
the
that.
article in the New York Times that came out in 2017, and she introduced me to this guy, Randall Nickerson.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh, he's working on this landing case in Africa. Long story short, he's working on a film now. I think it's coming out next year, specifically on just that case. Dan Farah is producing it, and he said, I'm working on the case, and if you want to do something with me on it, a small piece, I could. So I got back into it. I licensed some of the footage that Dr. John Mack, the Harvard psychiatrist that came and interviewed the school children on camera within a week of it happening. He unfortunately looked the wrong way in London, got run down by a car and died. So I contacted the Institute with the help of Randall Nickerson. I licensed the archival footage. We tracked down the witnesses today. We flew them in from all different corners of the world, brought them together. A lot of them were standing right next to each other. They came face to face. And one of the things I realized was that there were roughly 100 kids in the playground, broad daylight, aerial school, rose and
doing their own thing.
1994. And they got within arms, some of them within arm's length of these beings.
They even have pictures where these beings are in the background. They're like doing selfies. They're like,
they're significant others.
Check it out. Like, we're taking selfies with aliens.
And I myself,
there's pictures out there. It's amazing. It's like, is that somebody in a costume, or
in my opinion, is the most powerful segment because
it's very compelling.
You've got all these children saying what they saw on camera after it happened, and then
children are so pure and honest.
And then we go to Africa and we meet with the headmistress, or she was a teacher at the time. We went with other witnesses. We go to the landing site. We talk to people at the school. That case is absolutely, and it was witnessed by lots of other people in and around the area for several days before it chose a school to land.
It's so compelling because the children are all clearly, they're not actors.
Okay,
so as they're adults, could be other places, they're all talking about this moment, and it's like they had a religious experience together. Like they're all sharing it and talking about it, and you could tell it's a deeply moving experience. If they were actors, they wouldn't have been able to do such a good job, because to convey the reality of that moment to them.
Stop screaming. What? Is it still going?
That's what the children is, because the archival interview of the children, she just dropped off a cup of coffee and she stopped and went, "Oh my God, those children are not lying. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen." Because look, I ask your audience to don't take it from me. Just suspend judgment for a moment and imagine, hypothetically, if a UFO or several UFOs landed at a school in broad daylight in Rua, Zimbabwe, Africa, and interacted telepathically with nearly 100 school children. Not all of them had telepathic, but seen the incident. How significant of a story would you give that?
Well, not only that, they had the same message.
Yes.
What the telepathic message was that technology is a real problem.
Yes.
And there's things that people are doing with technology that are going to ruin the earth.
Yes.
And they were trying to relay this to children, which is very strange.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I mean, maybe they just thought they were adults because they were the same size as the aliens. I mean, do you think they knew that they were children? Do you think they understood that it was a school? I mean, this is all speculation, right?
But no, I definitely had to ask myself, look, during the production of the film, Paula Harris actually turned me on to another landing case that happened in Australia in 1966 at a school. And this time there were roughly 300 witnesses that saw a disc land right outside a playground in Australia. And we went to Australia and investigated that case, went to the landing site, talked to eyewitness testimony, people that jumped the fence at the school playground and ran over to where this thing landed. And then we even interviewed a guy who snapped a photograph of a disc, a Polaroid, back in 1966, 2 days prior to the incident. So it's very probably that we have photographic evidence, we have eyewitness testimony, and for the first time we've got testimony from a science teacher. So why do these things land at schools? It seems like, and I'm just totally speculating here, but it seems like if I were going to do that, it seems like a pretty benign environment. We've had testimony from military guys that we take a fairly hot.
Intrusions by UFOs as a threat. I mean, that's the whole thing behind this new task force. And as much as I respect, the task force, my colleagues and I want to cooperate with them to the extent that we can bring information or resources to what they do. But there is more. This should not be looked at specifically as a threat. I mean, with the phenomena that we observe, I mean, if they wanted to blow up those F-18s, they could do it. Okay, obviously that's not what it's all about. And this idea of just labeling it all as a threat because it's unknown, that's a wrong idea. 90% of the information comes from the public, comes from children, and very, very little of it is made up. In France, I mean, the data we get, at the French Space Agency comes through channels where if people reported something that's found to be untrue, they're going to be called by the police.
What are your thoughts on alien life, on life outside of this planet? Is this something you think about?
Yeah, I think there must be. Even in the solar system, I would not be surprised if we find microbes on Mars or on some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn where there's liquid water.
Like Europa.
Yeah. And the reason is, if you think about, the reason I think that, and it's a guess, is because if you look at the history of life on Earth, then so Earth formed and it was just there was no life. It was a ball of rock. And almost as soon as it cooled down, we see evidence of life. So certainly 3.8 billion years ago, possibly even further back than that, we see evidence of life on Earth. So somewhere along the line, geochemistry, active geochemistry became biochemistry on Earth. And we have some idea, that if you get gradients of temperature and acid and alkaline and the conditions that are naturally present on the surface of oceans, then complex carbon chemistry spontaneously happens. So we know that life, almost certainly we know that life began on Earth. I mean, the other option is it came from space or something like that, but it probably didn't, right? It probably began on Earth. So that means that at least here, that happened. And that we know that the conditions that led to the origin of life on Earth were present on Mars 4 billion years ago. And we know that they're present on Europa today. So I don't see that there's anything special. Life is just chemistry. And the idea that geochemistry becomes biochemistry is not fanciful because it happened here. So I think that given the same conditions, it would be surprising to me if the same thing didn't happen, in that life begins. So that's one of the, to test that is one of the great frontiers of science now. It's one of the great challenges, which is why another reason we're interested in Mars, because we know those conditions were there. We know there were what's called hydrothermal vent systems on the floors of oceans on Mars 3.8 or 4 billion years ago. So it would be good to know if what I've said is right. And the way we find out is to find life or evidence of past life.
Are you aware of the speculation that was going around? How recent was it, that Occupy thing, the octopus eggs? There was a group of scientists that were speculating that it's panspermia, the idea of panspermia, that it's possible that octopi had come from somewhere else, some frozen eggs had actually come from somewhere else and landed on Earth. And these are like legitimate scientists who are contemplating it, not morons.
I don't think
you've seen this.
No, I didn't. But I mean, I think it's unlikely. So panspermia doesn't have to be unlikely.
Right.
I mean, for example, you might see the other day we found an Earth rock on the moon.
Yes.
Right. Well, it was back on Earth now because the Apollo astronauts brought it back, didn't they? It's 4 billion years.
Spermatozoid out there everywhere.
Yeah. So we know the material gets transferred between plants, and so it's not inconceivable that microbes could survive that journey. Right. We know that microbes can survive in space, for example. So that isn't mad. It's probably unlikely, but it's not mad. But with the octopus, I hadn't heard that. But the thing is that the octopus is still extremely similar biologically to us. I mean, the differences are negligible.
Yeah.
So it's still got the same energy
alien,
single ATP and DNA and all that stuff.
It's
all very, very similar.
It was something about RNA and DNA. Did you find that article?
I'm looking at a different one from a different website. It's about the same thing. It has to do with the Cambrian explosion. And there were 33 authors on a paper that got published in the Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology that talked about this possibility. There are other people that disagree with it.
Right. I mean, I suppose I haven't seen it. So I think it's unlikely because the octopus is extremely similar to us. So that suggests a common origin to me. I suppose the counter argument, you could.
DNA, RNA, what?
Though, that's the thing about an octopus. That's why I'm surprised about it, because they're not that alien. They're very similar.
Well, they're in their abilities, their ability to transform their outer texture and their color almost instantaneously.
Oh yeah,
I mean, they have incredible camouflage abilities that really don't exist in the mammalian world.
Yeah, but on a cellular level, you look at an octopus cell under a microscope, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Right.
Between an octopus cell and a human cell.
So
Hello? You still going there?
the only way that would make sense is if all life comes from basically the same kind of building blocks and it just varies depending upon the conditions and where it takes place.
I'm guessing, but yes, that must be the only way you could sustain that, given that they're so similar to us, because they really are biochemically. That's the only way it can be done, given the building block, the toolkit, the laws of nature, and the elements and so on that we have in our universe.
We have so many different life.
Hey guys, we are at the end of our time for We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies, and I hope that you guys enjoyed story time as well as having Joe Rogan on and his alien experiences or his guests' alien experiences. To me, that's pretty intense. But yeah, Joe Rogan, like, he's totally open, and a lot of people have compared me to Joe Rogan, and I'm just like, what? I don't even get that. I'm just like, me, Joe Rogan, like, totally two different venues, but at the same time, perhaps if we met or something else could happen, perhaps I could be just like he, Mr. Joe Rogan. But yeah, so earlier I had queued on ghost stories as well as alien stories, and to me, this whole thing being an effect, super intriguing to me. I was totally blown away. Totally blown away. But I want to thank you, everyone out there who's been listening to me on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. It was super awesome to have you on here. All of your experiences, etc., yada yada. Hortude, hortude, hortude. I'm telling you what. It's been super amazing to have you on. Thank you for coming in with me and watching Joe Rogan and learning these different experiences. To me, it's pretty epic and awesome. Next week, we have me, TessaTNT. We have Ghost Stories, aka the book, The World's 100 Greatest Mysteries, aka Strange Secrets of the Past Revealed. Also different stories going along with our lives, but thank you so much for listening Beyond the Omniverse tonight, wherever you may be. It's been amazing to have you. In the meantime, we're all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. So we do have an after party. If you want to come in, if you've been there before, look me up under tessa.n.thomas30@gmail.com, or look me up at TessaTNT 970-335-9596. You know, together we can make the world a little better. Together we can build each other up, and together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. In the meantime, night night, love and light, and I'll see you back here, same time, same crazy place.